I've also had the experience where, someone puts a tweet out and then, like 100 people or 500 people like the tweet and maybe 20 or 30 retweet it. And then it's like, oh my God, you're getting canceled. No, I'm not getting canceled. Like, it's not. And just ignore it. And I think the vast majority of attempted cancellations, if people would just ignore it, it would go away. Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that the self-censorship that descended on hundreds of millions of people.
Yeah. Myself. I censored
all of us. Was it so oppressive and cancerous to a free society?
Nobody got offended 15 years ago. It was like sometimes my classroom, I'd be on a roll and it was like a stand-up comedy club, but that doesn't happen anymore. So, okay, well, whatever. That's all right.
No, I think you're just trying to. I understand where you're coming from.
I'm trying to justify it.
Yeah. I mean, no. You're finding the silver linings, and of course there's silver linings. I've spoken to editors of important magazines, who will say things that they would never allowed to be written in their magazine.
Isn't it awesome that Elon Musk paid billions and we still call it Twitter? Like, you think he's gonna be?
See, he'd like to cancel us.
I can't say.
Okay, so cancel culture is one of these things. Once again, it's like the internet, where it's actually pretty small. Right? It's a thing that exists more in our minds than anywhere else. People have come after me. Sometimes it's really big. When Tucker Carlson came after me a couple times on his 8 o'clock news, his segment.
Your mic is off, Noam.
Yeah.
I hate Tucker Carlson. You got to tell us about that, but go ahead.
He hated him post his interview. I can't say I've always hated him. I hated him for years.
Yeah.
So Tucker Carlson came after you, yeah.
Okay, so that's a different kind of cancel, right? He has a big audience. And so when he tells his followers, hey, watch this 12 seconds of this guy in his classroom. Let me tell you what he's saying and what he's doing. I'm like, dude, you can't, that's not at all what was going on, but you've told them now. So I get an email every 8 or 10 seconds and they're all saying the exact same thing, right? Which is basically what he told them to say. That's a different kind of cancellation, because that's just like a social movement level cancellation. But I've also had the experience where, someone puts a tweet out and then, like 100 people or 500 people like the tweet and maybe 20 or 30 retweet it. And then it's like, oh my God, you're getting canceled. No, I'm not getting canceled. Like, it's not. And just ignore it. And I think the vast majority of attempted cancellations, if people would just ignore it, it would go away. And the ones that we don't ignore are the ones that bust through the media, those are the ones that we think about. Well, it's really relatively few. I mean, just in the United States, we have 330 million people. So how many people are getting canceled on any given day? Think about, everyone's throwing opinions out all over the world on social media, and everyone's interacting with so many people. There's millions and millions and millions of interactions every single day. How many people actually get canceled on a daily basis? Very few. And so the cancel culture is, once again, more of a mindset than it is actual behavior by the people in this particular population, or any population anywhere, actually. So I think I want to say that. That's how I would understand cancel culture.
I think cancel culture, having been through it, I think it's more serious than what you're saying, although you may not disagree with me. It's not so much that some huge number of people's lives were ruined, although some people's lives were ruined.
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that the self-censorship that descended on hundreds of millions of people.
Yeah. Myself, I censored.
All of us was it so oppressive and cancerous to a free society.
Yeah.
And I think it was I hope
Okay,
it's
well,
waning
here.
now. Yeah.
Well, first, let me respond to that. First, much of that is a good thing, right? Just earlier this morning, a buddy of mine sent me. We have been going back and forth on Borat, or what's his name? Who's the guy that does
Sacha
Borat?
Baron Cohen,
Sacha
Borat.
Yes,
Baron Cohen.
yeah. So he had this thing that he did. He was doing little skits, and he went to these day laborers, and he picked a bunch of guys. I put him in the back of a pickup truck, and then he was like driving over these speed bumps and so on and so forth. And he said, "Yeah, I'm going to hire you for the day," just being a real jerk, you know. And then he pulls up to the immigration office, and of course they all get out and they run, you know. And he's laughing, and I'm like, "Man, it's stupid. It's not even funny. It's mean." And who would do that? And if he did that today, I would hope he would so-called, what I wrote is, I hope he would get canceled, probably, people on the left. And like, and he should be canceled. Like, that's dumb. Like, not canceled, but like, don't do that. Like, that's just dumb. Like, it's mean. It's just, God. So some of the cancellations, as it would be, are people really saying, hey, these extreme things over here out around, like, stop doing that stuff, man, because that's just not cool. It's really not cool. And so, like, okay, that's a piece, that's a segment of it. Okay. And it has it, you know, I wind myself back. There's certain, first off, I used to do stand-up comedy when I was an undergraduate. And so I have a natural inclination to get behind a microphone and to tell jokes. But I don't do that anymore in class, because almost every time I tell a joke, there's an there's a piece to it that my students don't understand. They're not ready for it. So I've just like, because I've stopped doing it. When I let it slip and it comes out, they're like, hey, you're not supposed to be telling jokes. And then somebody gets really offended. Nobody got offended 15 years ago. I would, man, it was like sometimes my classroom, I'd be on a roll and it was like a stand-up comedy club, but that doesn't happen anymore. So, okay, yeah, okay, well, whatever. That's all right. I don't, it's,
No, I think you're just trying to I understand where you're coming
I'm
from.
trying to justify
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, no. You're finding the silver linings, and of course there's silver linings. Of course that the
Yeah.
fact that you can hear some old Eddie Murphy routine about gays
Yeah.
and see how harsh it is, and imagine that gays, a sizable segment of our population
Yeah.
had to live in a world where this was perfectly acceptable, and say, well, some good things have happened. Absolutely. I don't know
Yeah.
whether
Yeah.
cancel culture was necessary for us to progress to more sensitivity, but you know, no,
Yeah.
I mean, I've been doing this podcast. I've had really good faith. I can't even say their names, but like intellectual people, heroes of moderate people who would like, the mic's not on, is it? Like I'd ask, like they just want to know the
Yeah.
mic's
Yeah.
off before they
Yeah.
give me a
Yeah.
more frank answer. I've spoken to editors of important magazines
Yeah.
who will say things that they would never allowed written in to be written in their magazines. We had
Okay, but listen,
let me say
but
what
let
let
me,
me just say one other thing. And one of the stupidest things, you had people like my friend Mike Pesca. You had the situation where Don McNeil, is that his name? Is that his first name? Don, yeah, McNeil at the Times was fired for repeating the N word in a conversation with somebody who said the N word to him. Not
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
nobody even claimed it was using it or wielding it or
Yeah, no, that's right. Or
just
like
repeating it.
what's his name for Papa John's? You know, he got the
Yeah.
whole cancellation with him was the
So,
same thing. He was,
but so
yeah,
so then this story comes out. McNeil is fired. And the reason I get, by the way, in case he's listening, I was thinking Don McLean, the guy who sang American Pie. So I always think I'm getting it wrong. But Don
yeah,
McNeil, Donald McNeil. So then Mike Pesca, who worked at Slate Magazine, in a Slack channel among journalists and people who work in journalism, said, "Well, I think perhaps it's okay in certain circumstances to repeat the word," or whatever he said, and he got fired for that.
yeah,
He didn't
yeah.
actually repeat the word. He got fired for thinking that it's okay to repeat the word. So this is, and this is in elite institutions.
Okay, well,
This is
listen.
all too much. All too much. Yeah.
Okay, but that's not cancel culture. Okay, that's a
Oh yeah,
side
it
of
is.
cancel culture of people who are the adults in the room who are unwilling to say, hang on a second, I'm the adult here. That's not happening. You need to go,
Absolutely.
you need to go get a life. And so But what's happening, and what I see around me often is like, hey, I have something, all the time that, not all the time, but, some student or somebody will complain. And I'll say, well, hang on a second. That's not offensive. Okay. Like I teach the largest race course in the world. I've been doing this for 35 years. Talking with people all over the world. I think I'm the kind of guy that you want to come to and say, hey, what currently is and is not offensive? Give us a reasonable perspective on here. So come to me on it. So now I'm going to tell you that's not offensive. But the fear that it could be perceived as offensive by other people means that I got to be brought in line somehow, even though it's not offensive. So this is a problem, but the problem is other people in power who are just unwilling to be the adults in the room and just say, no, we're just not, that's not it. And we're going to just
I agree with you 1,000%. And this is because of Twitter. I mean, the additional layer to everything you're saying, which I think is 100% true. I think this is what you're saying, is that very few people actually believed it anyway. The corporations that were firing people weren't actually offended. The people, it was all like, I used to compare it to the Wizard of Oz. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. It's just like the wizard projects himself as this huge specter to be feared, but actually nobody actually believes this stuff.
No, nobody does. And this is the problem, right? And this is where we've sort of lost our minds. And this is where somebody like Trump is just take a page from this guy's playbook. He's just like, he just ignores it and moves on. And then the little dogs are like behind him, like nipping at his heels while he's walking away. But he's walking away, and those little dogs are never going to catch up to him, and it doesn't really matter.
And that's one of the mistakes that the Democrats do, that they stick with little things versus focusing on truth. I think cancel culture.
And by the way, just say, and Trump, just so he shows, many things that people complain that he said, I think are not offensive, but he has actually said and tweeted actually offensive things, even by my standards. But go ahead.
They didn't even offend me. It's really hard to offend me.
I think cancel culture is also a tool that people can fight what they don't like personally. So if you disagree with someone, it's a tool. It's like, hey, and it became tool to promote yourself. Also, I see that a lot with comedians now, tool to promote yourself, that you are edgy. It's like, I'm gonna get canceled, so that term is becoming like you're giving power to someone, and then it's kind of game now. But like you said, like do what you do and then move. Isn't it awesome that Elon Musk paid billions and we still call it Twitter? Like, you think he's gonna be
see, he'd like to cancel us, you know what I mean? Okay, so here's one other thing I want to throw in here really fast, a thought I had. You couldn't cancel people 20 years ago, because what are you going to do? Like, I mean, you just really can't. Nobody, it's going to stay localized in a particular organization, right? Well, now there's so many people who are voicing opinions, and there's so many journalists who are just looking for some kind of a story, looking for some kind of a problem. Anything at all that they can write a story that they'll get 1,000 people to read it in some magazine and maybe get paid $2,000 for it or something. And anybody can be a journalist. And so I think that's also kind of what's going on in this world of cancel culture.